driver Sam Bird. And Sam, I mean, there were 4 teams in the top 4 in FP2 yesterday, separated by less than 0.3.
Was exciting, actually. Max Verstappen looks the class of the field again. That little tweak to the floor working very nicely. This is a track that he's gone extremely well at before. I think he's won 4 or 5 times here, 5 times here before. So he's my tip for this afternoon's pole position. But behind him, yeah, very, very close between Ferrari, who looks strong, Mercedes and McLaren.
What about Oscar Piastri, though, the championship leader? He looked like, out of all the title protagonists, the one with the most time to find.
He does have the most time to find, and that McLaren doesn't look easy to drive around this circuit. Just watching the attitude of the car yesterday, this place can be tricky. It can catch drivers out, especially through the S's in the middle part of the lap, turn 7 to turn 11. Particularly difficult, I thought, for the McLaren drivers. But yeah, he was probably 4 or 5 tenths off where I expected him to be. Didn't get a second lap on the soft tyres in, so I expect him to make a jump forwards this afternoon, but how far, we'll find out.
Bit of homework needed then overnight coming into today. The sun is out, although it's a little bit overcast above. Air temperature 22.5 degrees, track temperature just below 44 degrees. And if we bring you up with how the standings look, it is Oscar Piastri who has 346 points and heads the championship, 14 clear of Lando Norris, but Max Verstappen just 40 points behind the leader and very much in this battle over in the teams, while McLaren wrapped up the constructors in Singapore. Still a good fight going on, though, for second place. Mercedes currently winning that battle. They're 7 points clear of Ferrari, who themselves are only 3 points clear of Red Bull, who are in 4th. And it's Williams who've really solidified 5th spot. Still a battle going on for 6th in the midfield, so important for those teams. Racing Bulls, Aston Martin, Sauber, only a handful of points separating those 3, with Haas and Alpine a little further adrift, as the green light will come on in just a few minutes time. Let's bring in Andrew Benson. Good evening to you, Andrew. And it was, I've said it quite a lot already, an intriguing session yesterday, and also looking at both McLarens as well, who looked like they were trying their long runs on the soft tyre, which we didn't really see many others do.
No, it was interesting because Lando Norris was very quick on the long run, but he and Oscar Piastri were the only people in the top teams to run the soft tyre in the long run, and that means that their pace might have been skewed by that, because of course the track was very low grip, so we don't know what the offset really between the soft and the medium was on the long runs. Max Verstappen, actually, although he was very quick on one lap, he was not quick on the long runs, at least while I was still counting. He was even slower than Fernando Alonso's Aston Martin, believe it or not, definitely behind the Ferraris and the Mercedes, and he was complaining about it afterwards. Someone said one interview that they're allowed, that the drivers do on the Friday, he was asked, yeah, but you know, you're quick over one lap, and he goes, yeah, but we can't win the race that way. So it's a really intriguing setup for the rest of this weekend.
We're just having a look at Lando Norris. You might even be able to hear him chatting with his mechanics. Just stood looking very relaxed at the back of his garage. Doesn't seem like he's in an immediate rush to get in the car. I mean, it is what we normally see in FP3. It's not exactly a huge influx onto the track, although Lewis Hamilton is with helmet on and putting the hands device over his shoulders and clipping it onto his bright yellow helmet with red trim before he gets ready and gets 1 foot into the cockpit of that Ferrari car. Lewis Hamilton last time out, Sam, still behind Charles Leclerc, but looked a little better, looked a little closer, a little more comfortable in these closing stages of his first season and what's been up and down for the 7-time champ.
Yeah, I think it's been a challenging and learning year for Lewis with Ferrari, hasn't it? I cannot believe that he still hasn't had a proper Formula One podium to his name this season, but I think him and his engineer are starting to gel. I think he's understanding what it takes to be a Ferrari driver and B, extract them more out of the package. But I think he's got, you know, more than an eye, let's say, on next year's car, the development of next year's car, and that's where he's pinning his hopes.
How crucial is that relationship between driver and engineer? Because of course we know Lewis Hamilton has such a formidable partnership with Bono, Pete Bonington over at Mercedes. You know, it's hammer time, get in there Lewis, all of these great sayings, and they just seem to gel so well throughout their time together, achieving so many championships. he's not only joined Ferrari, which is such a different culture to every other team on the grid, but he's having to get to grips and get to know Riccardo Adami, who's his new engineer. So how important is that relationship?
It's the most important relationship that you have at a racetrack. That combination of driver-engineer is absolutely crucial, because not only is your engineer the guy that will decide the setup changes for the car at any given time and for any given session, but he's also your port of call on the radio. He's your psychologist during the sessions or the race. He's the guy that you have to put all your faith and trust into to make the car as quick as possible, to give you the best strategy possible. And if you don't trust in him fully or believe in him fully, it can spiral really, really quickly out of control.
Well, it's so far, we've seen and heard a few tense moments on the radio in the early part of the year, but both of them getting on towards the end of this season, very much embedding and gelling ahead of what will be a big year for not only Ferrari, but for Lewis Hamilton in 2026. Right, session is underway then. FP3 is a go, and for those who wish to do a sync-up, it's coming at you now. It's 58 minutes and 12, 11, 10... 9 seconds remaining, with just 2 cars out on track at the moment in the form of the 2 Aston Martins. Lance Stroll leading Fernando Alonso. Stroll on the medium tyre, Alonso on the hard.
I suspect this will be one lap by the Aston Martins to scrub these tyres.
They love a scrub, don't they?
They love a scrub, Aston Martin, yes. It's a theory that some engineers have, that scrubbing the tyres, taking the shine off them, helps their duration in a race. Not everybody's convinced, and I don't think there's any real science behind it, but some teams do it, some teams don't.
Well, they did it yesterday with the soft compound tyres, didn't they? Which was a little bit strange, I thought. But yeah, going for it again with the medium and the hard compound, the first 2 drivers out there on the track, Harry.
You've raced around here, haven't you, in Formula E? They did sort of revised.
Have I raced around Mexico?
But did they do the full track in Formula E?
No, but I've got the lap record round there in a GT. In a GT.
Yes, there it is.
There we go.
Can you describe to us then? I mean, first of all, that long straight, but also going through the Forosol must be something.
It is something, and you know, Formula E would be packed in the Forosol, which was pretty cool. It is quite a spectacular thing. It's not the most spectacular sequence of corners, but just
to say the least.
but
you hate it, don't you?
Great for the fans.
It's good for the fans. They love it. And do you know what? They're so passionate over there. They really are. I mean, you know, watching the feed, it's
they've
incredible.
already got Team Checo and Bottas signs ready in the grandstands ahead of their partnership at Cadillac next year.
Team Checo with Bottas in Spanish.
I think we all know how that's going to go next year in Mexico.
Yeah. So Sam, this track, good, bad, bit meh?
I enjoyed it in the GT car. I did enjoy it in the GT car. I thought that was a great challenge. It gives the impression that it's going to have more grip than it actually does. I think that's the climate, the altitude where it is, the micro and macro that the surface gives you. It's a challenge. I enjoy the sweeping section, but where McLaren have been struggling, so between turn 7 and turn 11 is quite good fun. But yeah, I think in the GT cars, I would have liked a little bit more oomph down to turn 1.
But you'd have liked to try Peraltada in the old days too, right?
Yeah, back in... When was the last time they did that? 92? 90? Yeah, 1992. That was a corner. Yeah.
And sadly not there anymore with the Forosol section, that sort of baseball stadium, part racetrack, part concert, really, that adds about 25,000 people to the capacity of the Mexico City circuit. But we're hearing sounds of a few more drivers out on track, having scrubbed his tyres. Stroll's come back in. Alonso's also just followed him into the pits, so that only leaves Max Verstappen onto the track. And what continues to, I think, impress many and maybe surprise and seem quite ominous is the fact that they got this new floor, did Red Bull, back in Monza. And when everyone else now has steadily switched off the taps for 2026, still, this weekend, they brought some tweaks to that floor. Red Bull are still pushing here.
They are. They sense that, you know, Max could do this. And I've actually got a question for Benny, if he's willing to answer it.
I'm afraid you have to submit it on the BBC Sport website, and he'll answer it next week in his article Q&A.
I'll tell you whether I'm willing to answer it when you ask it.
Do you think that Max Verstappen is the most complete Formula One driver there has ever been. I know he hasn't broken all the records yet, but given his speed and his relentlessness, do you now think that he can hold that claim?
He's in the conversation, isn't he? You know, there's a bunch of drivers that, and it's not all about statistics, and it really drives me mad when people go, oh, well, Schumacher and Hamilton are the GOATs because they've got the best statistics. It's not as simple as that, because there's other vagaries to Formula One, as we all know, particularly the car itself. Some people have got themselves into good cars, some people haven't, and you could argue that that's all part of the greatness, but anyway. So I think, you know, in that conversation, you've got Verstappen, you've got Hamilton, you've got Senna, you've got Prost, maybe. You've got Clark and Stewart and Fangio and Moss, and some people might make a case for Fernando Alonso. But
being you,
some people might, and more than one, I'm sure. I think you could make a strong argument that it's Verstappen, on the basis not least that people say drivers just get better generation by generation, you know, just as humans get stronger and bigger and so on, from generation to generation. Look at the 100-metre world record, for example. So, you know, he's right. He's an amazing driver, and there's no other way to put it than that.
I'd put a case to say that he is, and that's not discrediting any of the other people that you've mentioned, Benny, because you know, Lewis is right up there, but just it's not just Formula One for Max. He's willing to go to the Nordschleife and drive a GT3 car and decimate everybody in sight, and
he really did too.
Yeah. and that's what, you know, he can drive the wheels off anything and destroy everybody in anything, it seems. Such is his quality behind the wheel of any car.
And what I think could add to that is exactly with any car, but also, you know, as we know in Formula One, you can sometimes only be as good as the machinery that you have under you. And when you don't have an outright dominant car that he hasn't had this year, depending on how this year ends up, and even as it is now, as Lewis Hamilton runs wide down at turns 4 and 5 and then comes back onto the track in his Ferrari, how a driver performs and gets the most out of a more average car, I think, is also really indicative of their overall greatness.
Well, that's one of the things that defines greatness, and that's why someone like Alonso's in the conversation. Someone like Gilles Villeneuve only won 6 Grand Prix, but he could possibly be in that conversation too, some people would say. But the thing is that all the greats have got flaws of one kind or another, and Verstappen definitely has his flaws, and particularly with him, it's the way this red mist descends. If he feels wronged in some way, we saw it with George Russell in Spain this year, you know, where they had the incident at turn 1, and Verstappen felt that deserved a penalty from Russell, and he just lost it basically, didn't he, and drove into Russell's car on purpose. And you see it from time to time. We did the move with Hamilton into turn 4 at Brazil in 2021 is another example of something that was completely beyond the pale, really, where he just, you know, lost it. But taking that aside, I think it's hard to see a flaw in Max Verstappen. He's incredible.
Talk of flaws, Lewis Hamilton on a quick lap has just locked up going into turn 1 and had to cut across the grass and rejoin again on the other side.
Yeah, that's 2 laps in a row that he's had difficulty with the retardation of that Ferrari. It looks like he's really struggling to get the car stopped. Front locking going into turn 1, and I don't know whether it was front axle issues into turn number 4 on the previous lap, but yeah, we're just on board with him now. Oh, an immediate front lock as he started to brake into turn 1. The front just wasn't happy. He's had to release the brake pedal, because otherwise that would have been an enormous flat spot taken to the grass, and that'll have all sorts of grass in the radiators now, and he does have a small flat spot on that front right to add to the woes of those 2 laps.
I think the other thing about Verstappen, just to finish this conversation because it's probably getting boring for everybody, is I think you see it, other drivers, you get the respect when someone stands out head and shoulders above everybody else, and that's a difficult thing to say because of course Hamilton's still in the field and he is a 7-time champion with 105 wins. He's got the all-time great numbers, but I think, I mean, Hamilton definitely wouldn't admit to himself, but you see, for example, the respect that Fernando Alonso has for Max Verstappen, and the way all the others, whenever they refer to him, all of them, say things like, "Well, Max is Max," and what that means is he's better than the rest of us. And you saw it with Senna. Someone's having is that a Sauber with an engine issue potentially?
Hulkenberg.
You saw it with Gilles Villeneuve when he was in Formula One. They all knew he was the fastest guy. It's as simple as that. And so, you know, Verstappen has that status now. It was the same with Clark. It was the same with Moss. It was the same with Fangio. So, you know, that says something in itself.
Worth opening this up as well for your inputs. If you're listening to us this evening, wherever you are in the world, you can get in touch on X. It's hashtag BBCF1, or you can email us f1@bbc.co.uk. But track's starting to get a little busier now. It was Nico Hulkenberg's Sauber a few moments ago that was just coming out of the pit lane with a few bits of a whisper of smoke coming out the back. But he's carrying on out there, so perhaps just a bit of oil being burnt off the rear end from that Ferrari-powered Sauber. It's his teammate Bortoleto who has the quickest time at the moment on the mediums, a 1:18.7, a 10th clear of Max Verstappen. Then it's Colapinto's out there on the soft ahead of Hulkenberg, and actually Gasly's just gone up to 4th, so Hulkenberg down to 5th. Hamilton, who didn't really get a proper lap time after that mistake in turn 1, is 6th. We are watching his teammate though right now, heading down to the 90-degree right-hander of turn 12. The DRS rear wing slams shut under braking as Hamilton completes a better lap and goes fastest. So let's see where this puts Charles Leclerc now, coming through the Forosol, out through the right-hand kink of turn 16, pitches you up over the slight curve, and then really struggling for grip round the final corner, the right-hander, and he ends up nearly 7/10 down from Max Verstappen, who has now gone fastest in the Red Bull.
I fancied Charles Leclerc for a really decent qualifying today. I just think that Ferrari looks very, very compliant. Looks a little bit softer than the likes of the McLaren, and it looks like he's able to place the car where he wants far more often than where Oscar and Lando are able to. Their front end looks like it's almost bouncing across the road at times.
Look how close those two Ferrari times are. Lewis Hamilton just jumped up to 3rd place, and he's 1,000th of a second behind Charles Leclerc. Actually, I wanted to talk about the championship battle just briefly, Harry. It was something Sam said in a segment on the radio before we came on air for this commentary for this practice session. He was saying, if Verstappen wins every race, then he's world champion, and that's including the sprints, by the way. The flip side of that, of course, is that for Oscar Piastri, as long as he only has to beat Verstappen once, and as long as he then finishes like top 3 for the rest of the year, he's champion. And you would think with 5 races to go, with the season McLaren have had, that doesn't exactly sound like a tall order, does it? And yet here we all are talking about Verstappen as a potential champion. I think that taps into the question that Sam asked me. It's because we all know what a relentless force of nature Verstappen is once he gets the bit between his teeth. And as to, it sounds harder for Piastri to beat him once for the rest of the year than it does for Verstappen to win every race that's coming.
But can you see Oscar Piastri coming second in every single race? And
well, I haven't done the maths as to whether that's needed or not.
Well, but I think it would be needed. And I can't see him coming second in every race. I can see him coming second in some races, but I could see him coming 4th or 5th in some others. And I can see Verstappen winning most of them. That's the difficulty.
And that's what puts him in that bracket above so many other drivers, and particularly so, Piastri yesterday, it's only Friday practice, but had a really rough day, off colour as well in Austin, where he just was lacking a few tenths compared to teammate Lando Norris, who now seems to be finding a little bit more form when he had his blip earlier on in the year. So it's ebbing and flowing. I suppose the one thing Max Verstappen also has quite plainly is experience, not only in Formula One, but for going for titles, a 4-time champion versus 2 drivers who have never really fought for a world championship. Norris, had a bit of a go at the end of last year, but it was never really going to happen. So I wonder how much that kind of plays a factor on the mentality side of it as well, between Max Verstappen and the 2 McLaren drivers. It's actually Carlos Sainz who's now fastest, but on the soft tyre, 1:18.0. We're listening to the sound of Yuki Tsunoda in the other Red Bull, making his way through the Forosol right now. A cauldron of noise out through 16, slows it down for the right-hander. He's on the medium tyre. That last corner just looks so difficult to get the power fully down, and he goes 3rd fastest, but he's over 4.5 tenths of a second away from Sainz and his teammate Verstappen. And to rub salt into the wound for Yuki Tsunoda on Friday, when we had 9 rookies take part in free practice one of them Arvid Lindblad, who is a Red Bull Junior racing an F2, who many are hotly anticipating to make the step up next year. Well, he beat Tsunoda by, I think it was just less than a tenth of a second, which I know it's only Friday, but it doesn't look great for dear old Yuki.
It doesn't look great, and Arvid Lindblad did do a really good job in that session. But Yuki Tsunoda, okay, lack of confidence firstly. Secondly, his program, I don't know what the programs were, but presumably his session was all about preparing for the weekend. Arvid Lindblad was going out there to do the lap of his life to showcase to Helmut Marko, I'm good enough for a race seat next year. So there would have been a difference in mindsets going into that. It was close, and I'm not locking what Arvid Lindblad did, because what he did was superb. I think he was P5 or P6 in the session, and it was a great effort. And he is definitely somebody to look out for in the near future.
On a track that yesterday really lacked grip, as we now see the McLarens head out onto the circuit after biding their time. Lando Norris embarking on his first flying lap, coming through turns 2 and 3 now. A little bit of traffic in the form of the Sauber of Gabriel Bortoleto ahead of him, gets nicely out of the way, and Norris heads on his merry way, but he's 2.5 tenths down on Sainz, who was on the soft tyre, and he locks up for good measure going into the left-hander of turn 4, and somebody goes flying down the escape road behind him as well. Might well have been one of the Saubers, or it was also being followed by a Haas car, and gets out of the way. So Norris bails out of that one.
I don't know whether he's got a little bit of a fire potentially on that front left brake disc, but there's an awful lot. There was
the smoke did seem to linger,
quite a lot of smoke after what seemed to be a very small lockup, and it went on for quite a long time. We're just going to watch a replay here. Yeah, it looked like a rear lock, but then it was the front left disc that was creating quite a lot of smoke.
And it was actually Hamilton that went
Lewis
off.
going off again at turn 4. Lewis isn't, I don't think he's very happy at all with the braking capability of that Ferrari right now.
No, maybe a little bit distracted by the puff of smoke from Norris as well. There's a nice, they've added that, I think, this year. A nice little cut through on the grass. If you run too deep, you have to cut across the grass, but they've put a bit of asphalt down there. Quite a narrow line for the drivers to get through.
Charles Leclerc's on a good lap, but could get traffic. No, he's okay. Oh, but he's had a big slide in the stadium section. Takes the curbs, now down towards the final corner. Squeeze on the throttle, rear of the car squirming around, and across the line to go third, but at a yellow final sector. So he hasn't improved on his final sector time, improved in sector 1 and sector 2. So I think we've got more to see from Charles Leclerc.
41 minutes, 42, 41, 40 seconds remain. Sainz quickest in the Williams on the soft tyre. Then it's the medium runners of Verstappen, Leclerc, Tsunoda and Alonso, the top 5. Hadjar and Lawson have stuck on the softs and gone 6th and 7th. Then comes Hamilton, Bortoleto and Behrman, the top 10. This is the sound of Oscar Piastri, who has just started a lap. So looking for his braking point, getting up to speeds of over 330 kilometres an hour, make that 340 as he then slams onto the brakes, down through the gears, third gear into the right-hander, takes a bit of curve, then has to flick it over to the left, a little bit more curve before you're then coming out of the right-hander, down another short stretch. You'll get the aid of DRS once more. The rear wing flap flies open before it then slams shut again as you slow down to get the left-right sequence of corners through turns 4 and 5. The car slowing down to 70 kilometres an hour as he then turns through the double right-hander. Personal best in the first sector from Piastri as his teammate finishes his first flying lap. Norris goes third fastest, 37 thousandths of a second away from Carlos Sainz's soft tyre lap on the Williams as Piastri now heads towards the stadium.
Remember, those times of Sainz and Verstappen were done about 10 minutes ago, and the track is ramping up. Oscar Piastri doesn't look comfortable through turn 2 and turn 3. For me, looks very tentative over the curbs at turn 2. There's the curb, and then there's an inner kind of sausage curb. It looks like the quick guys are getting more of their tyre, the front left, over the sausage and not taking as much of a hit over that curb. Piastri just doesn't look comfortable in that section.
9 tenths down, 12th fastest is where he ended FP2 yesterday for Oscar Piastri, his teammate up in third. Let's see what he can deliver throughout the rest of the session. Still got over half an hour left, but continues the slight worries then over the championship leader and his performance so far this weekend. This is a little look at Isack Hadjar that we're seeing a few moments ago, navigating the traffic in the stadium.
Mate, the McLaren was just in the middle of the track. Idiots.
Isack Hadjar wasn't too happy then with one of the McLarens that he came across on the exit of turn 12. Traffic management, particularly in that middle sector, can be an issue here in Mexico City, especially for qualifying later on today.
It's the worst feeling when you bolt on a set of soft tyres and you think, right, this is it, I'm going to go for a big lap now, and you encounter traffic in a final sector. There's nothing worse as a racing driver.
Going back to our conversation about Max Verstappen and greatness, we've had an email come in from Bethany. Good evening, Bethany. She says, I feel like we can easily judge Max prematurely. I'd like to see what happens when Verstappen eventually switches teams. He's at home with Red Bull. What happens when he's somewhere new? What happens when Verstappen has a teammate that can actually challenge him? Maybe we'll look back and say he's the greatest ever, but I would have said that about Sebastian Vettel about 10 years ago, and I don't know if I would now. How do you, either of you two, reflect on Bethany's question and her email there?
Bethany's got a great email there. Yes, I would love to see Max change team. I think that would be really exciting for everybody involved in Formula One. Is that going to happen? I mean, Andrew might know a bit more than me about that, but I can't see it happening. Obviously, it's not going to happen next year. And it depends on what Red Bull's start to the season is next year. But for me, just based on how relentless he is, how he's able to maximise pretty much everything with the car. If the car doesn't look quick in a free practice, guess what? He's still there in qualifying. He doesn't make mistakes really in races anymore. At the beginning of his career, he did. Yeah, there's times when he's petulant, as what Andrew said, but for me, I'm going on racing driver, not F1 driver. The fact that he's able to get in anything and pretty much dominate everybody in anything signals to me that he is right up there as the greatest racing driver of all time.
It's a good point about Vettel, because I have to be honest, I was never completely sold on Vettel being great. I remember we did a top 10 all-time great drivers thing with the BBC F1 team back in the days we had the TV coverage, and we did it on the website, and I'm not going to say who, but one of the people in the team put Vettel as second greatest driver of all time, and I thought at the time that was absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, and I think it's proven ever since, just the comparison that he had with drivers that he's had teammates to that other people have had. So, for example, he was quicker than Kimi Raikkonen when they were at Ferrari together, but he was nowhere near as much quicker as Kimi Raikkonen as Fernando Alonso was in 2014 when they were together at Ferrari. And the same thing happened with Lance Stroll. Alonso's been much quicker than Stroll than Vettel was when he was with him. So it's a good point that Bethany makes, but I think also Sam's absolutely right. I think no one in the paddock thinks that Verstappen would have any trouble whatsoever switching teams in the way that lots of drivers have had in recent years, and I think that's a measure of what people you can kind of tell. I think even when people are in just one team all their career up to a certain point, you just get a feeling about the way they, as Sam was saying, he's just on it all the time, and these situations arise like Brazil last year. We were we were starting that race, and we were all talking, Harry, about who was going to win the race in the rain in Brazil. And I remember you asked me, where's Verstappen going to finish? And I was a little bit cautious. I said on the podium. What I really wanted to say at the time was, I think he's going to win, even though he was 17th and on the grid. And I wish I had said he was going to win, because he did win. And I think that's the point. You just feel that there's just... People say, Andrea Stella, the McLaren team principal, you can never rule Verstappen out. They always thought he was in championship contention this year, and that's because everybody recognises just how good he is.
I think I predicted the two Alpines on the podium as well for that weekend, if I remember correctly. Memory serves me well. 35 minutes left, just under that. Quicker lap times coming in. Nearly everybody out, with the exception of the two Saubers and Colapinto's Alpine. So the Mercedes now out there on track. Norris has just gone fastest, despite looking a little slipping and sliding his way through the lap. 13 thousandths clear ahead of Sainz, who did his lap time on the soft, and Sainz going again now. Verstappen third, Leclerc fourth, then it's Hadjar and Lawson, Hamilton seventh. Piastri's gone up to eighth, but he's still over 0.4 of a second adrift from Norris.
Yeah, he doesn't look happy, Oscar Piastri, at all, does he? And I mean, obviously, we don't know what's going to happen in qualifying later. But McLaren say that that they've understood what happened with the Piastri and Austin. They think it was kind of circuit specific, to do with the way the tyres interact with the track surface there. And he's still learning as a driver, of course. And in the third season, there is obviously still things to learn, and so he's not able to optimise everything in the same way that other drivers who've got more experience would do. All the same, there's been a run of races now where it's hard to ignore the trend, and I think if it carries on into Mexico, we have to really start asking whether we're seeing him having the yips in the way that Jenson Button got in the second half of 2009 with Brawn, for example, where he just completely went off the boil and it looked like he was going to throw the championship away despite having won, what was it, 5 of the first 6 races, or 6 of the first 7 races I think he won in 2009 in the Brawn. Nearly lost it in the end, and then finally got it together again in Brazil. The penultimate race, great weekend to win the championship. It does look a little bit like Piastri suffering from that sort of situation at the moment.
Meanwhile, a little bit of race work going on at Red Bull. Max Verstappen doing a couple of race laps, it looks like, in his Red Bull, sitting third at the moment in the times. Norris heads the field on a 1:18.015, only 1300ths of a second quicker than Carlos Sainz, who's done a time on the soft tyre. That was done quite a long time ago now, wasn't it, Harry? So we expect within the next sort of 10-15 minutes people darting into the pits to get their final attempt at a quali run in.
Yeah, absolutely. Just over half an hour left remaining. Should be worth saying, if you are just joining us for the weekend's action in terms of tyres, we've got another jump in compounds as we had last week, in Austin. The C2 acting as the hard, then we have a jump to the C4 for the medium and C5 soft.
Just not getting this medium tyre worked. Sliding all over the place.
And it's that medium that is not working for Mercedes and George Russell right now.
I was going to say, we haven't spoken about them at all over the first half an hour, have
they? They've only just gone out.
Yeah, they've been elusive in this first half an hour, but Antonelli in 15th, Russell down in 16th place. Make that 16th and 17th, albeit they've had a very limited running.
Yeah, they looked. Antonelli actually looked pretty quick yesterday for the Mercedes, but we've got this jumping compounds again to try and encourage, a two-stop strategy in the race. Whether we get that or not, we'll see. That's what they tried to do last week. We obviously didn't, because nobody liked the hard tyre. But from yesterday's long running on the soft tyre that both McLarens did, it certainly looks like that C5 soft can come to play during a Grand Prix, perhaps.
It's interesting that Russell's complaining about the medium again, because that was his problem yesterday. He complained about the rear grip on the medium as well yesterday, so Mercedes still clearly haven't solved that problem. Piastri's just done another lap, but he's still lapping at about 18.4. Which is still, as you said earlier, Harry, 0.4 off the pace, which has been set by Lando Norris and Max Verstappen. I'm not counting Carlos Sainz in second place because he had the soft tyres on for his lap.
He's consistently 2 to 2.5 off in Sector 1, by the looks of it, Oscar Piastri.
Do you know what? This is just another theory about McLaren, right? So do you remember back in Canada, McLaren introduced a front suspension part that was aimed at giving Norris more feel on the front axle, because he'd been struggling with that through the first part of the season. He was saying he couldn't feel the car, and it was all to do with the very extreme element of anti-dive and anti-lift that they put into the front and rear suspension this year, which is part of their advantage, Sam, isn't it? Piastri never adopted that part because he said it came with other compromises. They've never sort of detailed what those compromises are. It's something to do with the way the front wishbone joins the wheel at the wheel side of the suspension. You might know more, Sam, I don't know. But Piastri's not ever adopted that, and I just wonder now whether he should have done. Maybe that's part of his problem.
Well, yeah, if he'd stuck with that, if they've gone down that route of development, that could certainly be hindering him now.
Well, they don't consider it a development part. They consider it just something that's helping Norris's feel. But if it's helped Norris's feel to the extent that it's then allowing him to explore more of the performance of the car from his point of view, maybe Piastri should have tried the same thing.
Very true. Very true.
It's a really interesting point, isn't it? And I think one that may rear its head if this continues to show. We've had another email come in, by the way. This time it's from Matt in Aberdeen. So good evening to you, Matt, as we're just going to get a look at what's happened to Kimi Antonelli going down into the left-hander of turn 4. Does he run deep? Yeah, a little bit, and just cuts back on, and then runs out wide on the exit of 5. So that's Antonelli's lap gone. A couple of questions for Sam we've had come in from Matt. You ready for this one, Sam?
Please make them easy.
There's a lot of talk about how important energy recovery will be with next year's Formula 1 regulations. Maybe Andrew can clarify what that is as well. But will it be an advantage, perhaps, to have a Formula E sim driver within a team?
I'm readily available to any team. Look, the engineers and the drivers at these teams are the best in the world, and they will be able to get on top of this quite quickly. So it's interesting thought. But do you know what? There are some Formula E drivers, current Formula E drivers, that are also simulator drivers for Formula 1 teams. Jake Dennis works closely with Red Bull. I know Ollie Rowland has done some work with Alpine.
Stoffel Van Dorn at Aston Martin.
And Sebastian Buemi as well at Red Bull. So quite a few Formula E drivers do some F1 work as well.
Buemi's been there for years, hasn't he? Absolute donkeys. And the other question is, does Sam have a Lego version of his old car? I'm assuming this is like the McLaren, the Formula E Lego car. You got that one?
Yeah. I'm small enough to actually drive it on the roads, yeah.
Did you put it together yourself?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Because I got sent a Lego car and I actually didn't put it together myself.
Why not?
Because I just get a bit bored of it. So I got
too difficult for you.
It's too difficult. It's beyond me. My brother's an engineer, so I got him to do it. He enjoyed it.
Meanwhile, Charles Leclerc goes purple in the middle sector and currently is trending to go quickest. All he's got to do is get through the stadium section without any mistakes. Ferrari looking decent over the curbs, as it has done all weekend. Through the last corner, a little bit of understeer to then a little bit of oversteer on exit, crosses the line, stays fifth, and he's fifth, but only 0.06 of a second behind the quickest time of Lando Norris.
Yeah, just over half a tenth of a second then, covering the top 5 drivers at this stage of practice. You're listening to the final practice session before we go qualifying later on today. Less than half an hour remaining. This is the sound of Gabriel Bortoleto coming through the S's in the middle sector, coming through the right-hander of turn 11, flicks into the left and runs wide. And I think, did he kick up a little bit of marbles off track, or did something come off the car? No, I think he just drove over a very dusty part of the track and the runoff area that leads you to the rundown towards turn 12, which leads you into the stadium section as Alex Albon suffers a big lock-up coming through that stadium section and has to bail out of it. He's got a fast approaching Isaac Hadjar on the soft tyre, and the Williams bails out and gets to the inside of the final corner, gives Hadjar the room, even giving Hadjar a little bit of a tow, but very minor, just has to dart out of the way as Hadjar improves up to 6th, and again 65 thousandths of a second away from Lando Norris's fastest time. That was on the medium.
Well, the top 8 covered by 0.2 of a second. It's quite exciting going into qualifying to have something so close. We're now on board with Albon. Yeah, and it's just an immediate front left lock-up into the stadium section, and that lap was obviously aborted due to that. But yeah, that's not going to be a very happy front left soft compound tyre. I think that's going to be back to the pits and swap them out for something different. So
then, with less than half an hour on the clock, 25 minutes and 37, 36, 35 seconds remaining. It's Lando Norris fastest ahead of Carlos Sainz, but worth remembering Sainz was on that soft tyre. Then it's Russell third ahead of Verstappen. Leclerc the top 5. Hadjar makes the top 6, covered by just over half a tenth of a second. Tsunoda is 7th ahead of Albon. Antonelli and Lawson the top 10, with Behrman in 11th ahead of Lewis Hamilton, who's on a lap at the moment. Piastri struggling still, down in 13th. Then it's Hülkenberg and Alonso who round out the top 15, with Esteban Ocon's Haas Gabriel Bortoletto Sauber, Lance Stroll's Aston Martin, and the 2 Alpines, Gasly and Colapinto, make up the remaining 20 drivers. And even for free practice 3, the fans in the crowd are on their feet celebrating. No Mexican driver in the field this weekend, although we did have Pato O'Ward, the IndyCar driver, in for Lando Norris on Friday morning's session, to huge cheers from the grandstands. But no Sergio Perez, of course. He is in Mexico this weekend, but we will see him back on the grid next year with that exciting new Cadillac operation, and he'll line up alongside Valtteri Bottas.
Well, we should see him in a Ferrari at some point in the near future, doing a little bit of shaking off the rust testing, won't we? So that'll be interesting to see how he gets on. He's had a bit of a time out of Formula One. I think that would have been good for his head, actually. I think it was needed. Antonelli goes purple in the middle sector. And he's ruined the lap. That's going to be track limits and lap done. Was looking good for Antonelli there, but as we've seen, Harry, it's such a difficult track to get everything right.
It really is. Antonelli coming in really hot into the right-hander of turn 12, and then just couldn't get it slowed down in time, had to run off the track. So was fastest of anybody in the middle sector up until that point. Hamilton's got the fastest first sector, Antonelli in the middle. Norris has the fastest final sector, but so tricky to get everything right, as you say, Sam. Make that tyre last all the way round this just over 4.3 kilometre, 2.6 mile track. And we're getting another look at Antonelli then, running across the curb, which is pitched up as well, so it really clatters the bottom of that Mercedes car, and sparks fly from the underside of the Silver Arrow, but he continues on his way. Back in the pits, Oscar Piastri wheeled back into his McLaren garage from 14th spot, having just done a bit of long running as well, but certainly a bit of head scratching going on for the Australian, who leads the championship by 14 points to his teammate Lando Norris. Max Verstappen 40 points behind him as the action still continues out on track. Let's see what George Russell has got now. Late start for both the Mercedes drivers, but they're picking up the pace now. Fastest of anybody in the middle sector. That Mercedes really good then through the S's section, and he crosses the line and goes fastest by 1/10 of a second. Russell to the top of the times on the median.
Yeah, we need to see if the track is ramping up in that middle sector, or whether the Mercedes is just really, really strong in Sector 2. Both of their cars working well there at the moment, but for sure, Harry, the track will improve, and as we see more and more runners out on the softs, these times will just get quicker and quicker.
Certainly will. 6 different teams currently in the top 6 positions. Mercedes with Russell, then it's McLaren's Norris, Williams with Sainz, Red Bull with Verstappen, Leclerc and Ferrari, and Hadjar in that Racing Bulls. Carlos Sainz actually coming into this weekend with a 5-place grid penalty over his head after his incident with Kimi Antonelli in the US Grand Prix. Did you see that incident, Sam, that Sainz had with Antonelli in Austin, worthy of 5 places for the next race?
I mean, it was... that was...
How, if you were Carlos Sainz, how would you be fighting your case in the stewards' room on that one?
That Antonelli left the door wide open and he saw a gap. That's what I would be saying. It was there to be had, but then...
But
I think it was,
up,
but
right?
he messed up, but it didn't work. So, you know, as a driver, when you go into the steward's room, it's very rare that a driver will just go in and go, do you know what? I got that wrong, guys. Like, yeah, you know, that's how it went. I made a mistake and I'm very sorry. Most drivers, and 99% of the time, you'll go in and make some kind of argument that you're the victim and not the culprit.
Basically, I mean, I think that move was never on, and he took both cars out of the race effectively, so, you know, he deserved some form of penalty for it, whether it was a 5-place grid penalty or a 3-place grid penalty, whatever, I don't know, but... Sam?
He deserves something.
Yeah, I think 5 places is okay. I think that's if you take another driver out of the race and you can't get the penalty yourself during the remaining period of the race that you're currently in, where you've done the penalty, done the crime, then yeah, 5 places is about right.
But I'll tell you what, there's still overall optimism around Sainz and Williams right now, isn't there? Because after what's been a tricky opening year with his new team, much like we were talking about with Lewis Hamilton. Signs, with that podium in Baku, third in the sprint in Kota.
I think
seems like they're gelling.
I think he's had a very promising last sort of 3 months at Williams. I think that they're trending definitely in the right direction, and at the beginning of the year it looked like Albon definitely had the beating of Carlos at Carlos's new team, but recently it looks like Carlos has settled in and he's the one now leading that team forwards, which, knowing Carlos and knowing how methodical he is, how good a team player he is, and how good he is at working with engineers, I'm not surprised that he's leading that team currently. Albon is a very quick driver. I think Carlos is more of a thinker as well as being a good driver.
Yeah, I know you've got your own numbers, Harry, but I do a sort of on merit qualifying comparison, race by race, and I've got them at 11 all. With at the moment Albon ahead on average by 0.023 seconds. That just shows how close it's been between them all year. There's some other gaps up and down the field that are not close by any stretch of the imagination, but it's interesting that Norris, for example, was quite a long way behind Piastri on the head-to-head, but it's now 13.10. There's only 0.047 between those two at the moment.
No, it really is interesting seeing how these new teammate partnerships are unfolding, as Albon is on a flying lap right now and goes fastest of anybody in the first sector, but he's stuck on the soft tyre.
Yes, soft tyre and relatively low fuel load equals purple sector 1, and the track is obviously just getting faster and faster as we head into or closer to the final 15 minutes here of free practice 3. This is the lap that you want to put together nicely to give yourself the confidence going into qualifying later on this afternoon.
Yeah, Williams looking to have a strong end to the season, haven't brought any upgrades in a while, performance related. Fastest in the middle sector, but it all goes away from him in the stadium in front of 25,000. He locks up the front left tyre, runs wide, and that is the lap gone.
That's exactly the same mistake he made on the previous lap, isn't it? Now he's messed up those soft tyres as well as the mediums that he was on before, so not the greatest session for Alex Albon when it comes to putting a lap together.
Well, but it will give him some confidence that he was
pace
going.
The
pace was there or thereabouts. He'll make a tweak to the brake bias going into qualifying for that corner. It might be just a general brake bias change, or they might do some kind of shift where it's a much more aggressive shift to the rear for that specific corner.
Getting another look at it now, comes into the stadium, moves over to the right-hand side, and as soon as he applies the brakes for the left-hander, that front left just completely going up in smoke, and the flat spot forming on Williams, on that Williams front left tyre.
And that's as soon as he touches the brake pedal, so I can imagine that'll be a couple or even a few percent rearwards on the brake bias for that section in qualifying for Alexander Albon.
We saw, obviously we had 9 drivers sitting out in FP1. George Russell was one of them. I don't know if you saw this, Sam, but he went and watched FP1 from the stadium in one of those, I think, Lucha Libre masks.
Yeah. I don't have to do that. I can.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm very sure. We've just, interestingly, Oscar Piastri out on his new soft tyres.
Telling you guys, it feels weird.
That's Albon then reporting back to his team. So clearly not comfortable in that Williams. Something doesn't feel quite right for Albon in that car. His teammate at the moment is up in third and is also back into the pits. Russell is the top of the times now on that soft tyre, 1:17.892, about a tenth clear of Lando Norris. So we're going to see some quick fire runs towards the end of this session. As you say, Sam, Oscar Piastri is out there on his outlap at the moment, down in 14th after his medium tyre runs, looking to find a little something more now that he's out there on the soft.
Isaac Hadjar starting his soft tyre run, DRS open. Always difficult to pick a braking spot into this turn 1 section. DRS slammed shut, braking into turn 1, makes the apex at 1. How much curb does he take? All of it through 2. A little bit too much at turn 3, but got away with it. 27.633 for Russell. What is it for Hadjar? And he's up on George Russell's sector 1 time by 0.5 of a second. Couple of bites at the steering through turn 5. What's it like through 6? Hangs on quite nicely there, back on the power. and now through the difficult section. This is where a lot of people have been caught out by the rear of the car, just getting a little bit too wild. Coming to the end of sector 2, Harry, and he's 2.5 tenths up on George Russell.
Hadjar flying at this stage of the game. Let's see how he fares coming into the left-hander of 13, right in the epicentre of the Foro Sol. Pitches himself up over the curb on the exit at turn 15, through the right-hander of 16. Almost a never-ending arc that carves to the right-hand side and pitches you out on that start-finish straight across the line for Hadjar. On the soft tyre, goes fastest by almost half a second to George Russell's Mercedes. But now we're going to get a look at what our championship leader has got on the soft rubber, and he's 2.5 tenths up on Hadjar already in sector 1. This is a little bit more like it from Piastri.
Yeah, that's what we like to see, Oscar. Get it all together. Let's put a lap together. Let's get that confidence back. Again, squirming around on acceleration. Now into the difficult, twisty section, sector 2. Car doesn't look quite so happy through there as some other cars that we've seen, especially the Ferrari and the Red Bull. But anyway, across the sector 2 line, what is it? He's lost a little bit of time to Hadjar there, actually. Now just under 2 tenths of a second. Needs a nice clean sector 3.
Into the Foro Sol, just a few more corners to go then from Piastri. Keeps his braking zones nice and neat. The sun reflecting off that Papaya McLaren. Has a little bit of a wobble in the middle of turn 17, crosses the line, and by 81 thousandths of a second for the number 81 McLaren, goes fastest. A 1:17.3. Hadjar second, Russell third, Tsunoda pops up into 4th spot. Then it's Lawson and Stroll, the top 6, as we look next to the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc, who topped free practice 1. He was quick out the gates, was the Ferrari, and it was this time last year on Grand Prix Sunday that it's Carlos Sainz in the other Ferrari that took pole and the win at the Mexico City Grand Prix. Can they try and repeat that this weekend? It could well be a hard task. They're going on now for a year without having taken to the top spot in a Formula 1 race, have Ferrari. What's Leclerc got across the line? It's fastest by 9 thousandths of a second.
If you're 18 years old or younger, you will not have witnessed Ferrari winning a world championship in Formula 1. You have to be 18 years old or older to have witnessed it. It's mind-blowing to think that it's been that long.
And if you are a Ferrari fan, then all you would have known is pain.
It's a bit like being a Man United fan at the moment.
Although 3-1 up at the moment.
Well, don't spoil it for everybody, Harry.
You can listen to it on somewhere on 5 Live, I'm sure. Kimi Antonelli then fastest on the soft tyres. We're getting those runs come in. Verstappen is next, coming through turns 4 and 5 right now. Leclerc so demoted down to 2nd, Piastri 3rd, Hadjar 4th, Russell 5th. Still waiting for Lando Norris. He's on an outlap at the moment, so we'll see what the other McLaren has got in a few moments' time, with just under 11 minutes remaining of this final free practice session before we go qualifying later on today. You'll hear that on Sports Extra from 9:55 this evening, ahead of the green light coming on at 10 o'clock as Max Verstappen goes fastest of anybody through the middle sector with just a couple of corners left to run as he exits the Foro Sol. Round the right hand of the pit lane entry on the inside. He keeps clear of it, but still turns the car in, crosses the line, loses time in the final sector. But there's absolutely nothing in it right now as Verstappen pops himself up into 4th. 64 thousandths of a second covering those top 4 drivers, and Lewis Hamilton is on the way to pip them all. Fastest of anybody in the middle sector for the 7-time champion. The man who has won around this circuit twice before in his Mercedes days has a couple of corners left to run. A man who has taken a couple of his championship wins here as well slides himself to number 1 spot by over 2.5 tenths of a second. Hamilton and Ferrari fastest.
Well, he was 4.5 tenths up after the 2nd sector, so he's dropped 2 tenths in the final sector. So if Lewis Hamilton can get the final sector right, that would be phenomenal. Meanwhile, Lando Norris is on a charge as well.
Yeah, Norris is flying through the first sector, making his way out of turn 6 now, approaching the S's section, flicks it in to the left-hander. Then you just try and ride the roller coaster, right, left, then right again through 8, 9 and 10, keeping pinpoint in that McLaren. Flicks you out onto the short burst down towards the 90-degree right-hander at turn 12. You get the aid of DRS there. It slams shut under braking. Keeps it nice and tidy, does Norris. Fastest through the middle sector into the left-hander of 13. Out through 15 and 16. Back onto the main part of the circuit, having exited the stadium. Round the final corner we go for Lando Norris. It's top by almost 3.5 tenths of a second.
Now, the thing that struck me about those runs, Sam, was that the middle sector, the S's, is the medium speed corners, medium to high speed corners, mostly medium speed. That's where McLaren has been strongest all year. And whereas Piastri didn't look comfortable through there, you could see the car looking nervous, and you could see when Verstappen was doing his lap that he was definitely going to be quicker through that sector. Norris did look much more comfortable, didn't he, in the McLaren? So it does suggest, again, Piastri's still not quite happy with that car particularly in that section of corners.
And it's such a rhythm area of the track as well. With the moment you turn in to turn 7, almost dictates everything through to the exit at turn 11. So if there's something in line, I mean, he's going to be looking at all onboards, all the data that he can. But you're right, it's not quite flowing for him right now. He'll be more confident now because he's done a reasonable lap time. As he's currently 3rd quickest, as we've seen both Williams now, Carlos Sainz going off at turn 1 with front locking, and Alex Albon having another issue down at turn 4. But Oscar Piastri will feel better about life right now, being up in 3rd.
Yeah, he improved on that on a second lap that he did on those soft tyres, but he's still half a second, more than half a second behind Norris, 6 tenths actually, although of course the tyres will have lost their best on that second lap. But that just shows he obviously got it together much better on that second lap than he had on the first lap.
Yeah. Lando Norris did a great final sector as well. Compared to Lewis Hamilton, who we were on board with about 30 seconds prior to Lando Norris coming through, Lando attacked the final corner really, really nicely. This braking into turn 16 looked really strong. Lewis looked a lot more tentative in that area.
The other question is, Verstappen was very quick through the first 2 sectors, but lost time in the final sector. Was that because he made a mistake? I don't know, I didn't see one. Or was it because there's something to do with that car in the slow speed corners where it's not working? Hamilton definitely left some time on the table. You could see him sliding as he came out of the stadium, couldn't you? So he's looks like he's in the game as well.
7 minutes, 23, 22, 21 seconds remain of this final practice session, seeing those qualifying simulations run play out before our very eyes. There's still a couple of more laps to come. We'll see what George Russell has got in his Mercedes. He's back out there, weaving his way through the traffic. He's a 10.5 down on Norris through sector 1. Norris with that fastest lap time of 1:16.633. He is over 3 tenths faster than Hamilton in second. Then it's Piastri 6 tenths back from his teammate and back into pit lane. Antonelli 4th, Charles Leclerc the top 5. He's out there though on another outlap. Max Verstappen is 6th ahead of Isaac Hadjar. Then comes Russell trying to improve, but at the moment, let's see what he's got through the middle sector. Does improve on his own personal best time, but he's still 3.5 tenths down. Tsunoda 9th, Bortoletto in the Sauber running up inside the top 10. Then it's Lawson ahead of Ocon, Stroll, Hulkenberg and Sainz the top 15, with Ollie Behrman's Haas, Alex Albon in the Williams, Alonso's Aston Martin and the 2 Alpines of Gasly and Colapinto bringing up the rear of the field. Russell completes his lap time, does improve overall, puts himself up into 3rd spot. Still half a second adrift though. And let's not forget, Mercedes are still in a battle to try and hold on to 2nd place in the Constructors, which I think they would quite like to brag about over Ferrari and Red Bull. Not a lot splitting those 3 right now.
No, I'm expecting to see Leclerc and Verstappen, Harry, jump up a little bit more on their 2nd lap. We're now watching a replay of Isaac Hadjar. What's he going to do into the stadium? I imagine it's going to be a front lock. No. What's he going to say?
Yeah, come on, get out of the way! Is this guy blind?
I have no words. He could have let you by before turn 4.
Idiots!
He's not a happy man, is he, Isaac Hadjar? It's the second time we've heard him say idiot on the radio. Just a bit of news for you both, by the way. Aston Martin have just told us that that Fernando Alonso has got a problem with his car on the front right, and it doesn't look like he's going to be out before the end of the session, so he's not going to do a soft tyre run by the looks of it.
Okay, I was wondering there because he was in the pit lane with only 12 laps to his name. Last time out he was on the medium tyre, was Alonso. So a bit of work to do then for that side of the garage ahead of qualifying later on this afternoon. Charles Leclerc's back out there in the Ferrari, just coming out of that stadium section after Isaac Hadjar made his way through it and kicking and screaming all the way. I do love Hadjar on the radio though. He is certainly turning into a personality, and one I think we may well see a lot more of next year if we are to believe the rumours of a promotion to Red Bull.
There's something wrong with the engine. I've got no power.
That's Alex Albon in the Williams, who hasn't been feeling comfortable. So if they've made any setup changes with all the lockups earlier in between Friday and today, they haven't worked. But now also complaining about having no power. It's not been the smoothest of Saturdays for Albon.
No, it looked like both Williams cars were struggling with braking issues, predominantly front locking issues. So to add to that, an engine issue wouldn't be good. Now Max Verstappen coming through into Sector 3, gone green in Sector 2, Harry. We don't know how far off the pace this lap is currently, but this might be an improvement for Max Verstappen.
Let's see what it does round the final corner for Max Verstappen. 0.6 off, but improves his lap time and goes up into 6th spot with 3 minutes and 39 seconds to go. So it does seem like if you have a super slow cool down lap, you can go again and you can still find a bit of time on the soft tyre.
It's a really short lap. It feels really condensed when you're out there, so you do have to do an ultra slow cool down. I don't think anybody's tried a double cool down, but yeah, super slow cool down on the soft compound, and they can improve, and looks like most people have improved on that second lap. And I think that's more the track getting faster is more powerful than the tyre going off at this stage.
As Max Verstappen comes to a complete halt, and he's just getting well out of the way of a Williams, but just completely decided to stop his car. I actually thought the TV had frozen for a minute. Completely stopped his car just before the apex of turn 4.
Yeah, it's no grip. Don't beer.
Yep, I said no grip.
And also on the radio, no grip front and rear for Max Verstappen. So not happy out there.
No, not happy at the moment, and why would he be? He's 6th at the moment, 6.5 tenths off Lando Norris. That's not the session he would have wanted. There's been no form book yet here this weekend, has there? We've had a Ferrari top FP1, we've had a Red Bull top FP2, and now we've got a McLaren topping FP3 with the times here, there and everywhere. It's difficult to call going into qualifying just who's got the advantage.
It's great though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's good fun, but, I want to sound intelligent, and I want to be able to tell our listeners, this is who to look out for, and I predict this and that. And right now, I can't predict it. It's wide open as to what the grid will look like.
I gave up trying to sound intelligent a long time ago.
Yeah, 26 years ago.
Ouch. Do you want to come back next year?
Yeah, I'll speak to the producer about that, not you.
I pull the strings. A minute and a half remaining of this final practice session. Not seeing much action from the Haas team. Ocon, at the moment, the best of those two. He's down in 12th. Looks like he's about to be sent out again for a final run and do the practice starts at the end of the session. Ollie Bearman, who had such a good run last time out, actually, in the US and Singapore. Top 10 qualifying, top 10 point scoring finishes. Right now, though, he's kind of languishing down in 17th.
Yeah, but he's had a very impressive rookie season, hasn't he? I know last year he had a few races, but he's been very, very strong. One that I've enjoyed watching. He really gets stuck in the races and has a kind of swashbuckling style to him. Not full Fernando Alonso, but he really does get stuck in, and I think that he'll go big places in Formula One. The team that looks a little bit all at sea at the moment is Alpine. I think that their only target is to get through to 2026 and hope that car is far more competitive than this one that they've created.
If you were Franco Colapinto last week, would you have defied those team orders as well? Battling over 17th position.
Well, he's fighting for his career in Formula One right now, so yeah, he's giving it everything he can.
He certainly is. We had Paul Aron in place of Gasly on Friday in FP1 as part of the 9 rookies, the Estonian, who does act as Alpine's reserve driver. Has put as a good performances this year as a Friday driver, and has shown well in his F2 year. And if we believe Flavio Briatore, that seat is between Colapinto and Aron.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. It does seem like the powers that be at that team have said, look, it's either going to be Colapinto or Aron, and I can imagine that if they're close on pace, it might be about finances.
Poor old Jack Doohan. Remember him?
I'm not going to say anything. I think that was difficult. I don't think he actually did much wrong when he did those few Grand Prix that he did. I think he didn't excel, but he didn't make any glaring. He wasn't shockingly slow. I don't think Colapinto has, in his stint at Alpine, done anything particularly special, to be honest. I think that he looked better at the in the seat of Williams than he has done in Alpine, although I know Alpine are currently struggling.
I mean, look, Flavio Briatore realises none of them are going to be the greatest driver of all time, so he's going to make a financial decision, isn't he, if he can't split them. I mean, they've only got to beat Pierre Gasly, and they're not doing that, are they? So, it's a team with a lot of rebuilding to do, a lot of steps to make before they get back to the front, if they ever do.
Well, on that joyful and positive note, let's bring the checkered flag down on free practice 3. The clock has come down to 0, and it's Lando Norris in the McLaren, fastest. So 3 different teams topping the practice session so far in Mexico City, but McLaren and Norris finding a little something in Saturday's action so far. Lewis Hamilton up there as well, but 0.3 adrift of Norris in second. Russell third, Leclerc fourth, Oscar Piastri half a second, nearly 0.6 of a second back from his teammate. Enough for fifth. Verstappen sixth ahead of Kimi Antonelli. Isaac Hadjar looking good in the Racing Bulls in eighth ahead of Yuki Tsunoda. Bortoletto putting in a good time in the Sauber as well. Rounding out the top 10. Liam Lawson 11th ahead of Ocon. Then it was Stroll, Hulkenberg, Carlos Sainz, the top 15, just ahead of his teammate Alex Albon. Looks like there are some weird issues going on with the Williams driver right now. Behrman 17th ahead of those 2 Alpines, Gasly and Colapinto, with Alonso and Aston Martin calling their session early with some issues to work on that car. Hopefully they'll fix those issues in the few hours that he has between now and when we go qualifying a little later on this afternoon. So we're just getting a look at Bortoletto flying through the stadium section and onto the start-finish straight and then completing his lap. Let's hear from him.
Very nice, this McLaren, very nice.
And getting rather balked by the McLaren Oscar Piastri coming through turns 4 and 5. So Bortoletto wasn't very happy with that one, but still enough to finish inside the top 10. Right, that's us done for now. The practice starts begin, and then hard work in between now and qualifying for the Mexico City Grand Prix. We'll be back on Sports Extra at just before 10 o'clock this evening. Hope you can join us for it. Thanks to Andrew, thanks to Sam. We'll see you for qualifying. Who's going to be on pole position for the Mexico City Grand Prix? We will find out. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.